So where is the Oh, he's on holidays.
Oh, is Oh, Joe, that's right. Oh, we've been sitting all day.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring this meeting to order. Special open council meeting scheduled in the Douglas Rispin Room of Conference Center for July 20th, 2015. Call the special open meeting of council to order. Can I have a motion for the adoption of minutes? Motion seconded. Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item, motion that the meeting be closed to the public in order to deal with the agenda items under Committee Charter Section 91. Mr. Jackson, they might need some minor changes to that.
Yeah, so the procedural motion would be part of the Community Charter 91 A, D, I, J, and N. Would you like me to read those out?
Please.
Okay, well, A is personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position qualified in the municipality. D, which is the security of the property of the municipality. I, which is the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. J, which is information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act. And the final one is N, which is the consideration of whether a council meeting should be closed under a provision in the sections I just read.
Thank you.
Sorry? No. E is no longer part of it.
Can I remove it, please? Seconder? Seconded? Discussion. Councilor Fuller.
Yeah, can you reiterate what the information is on M as to why we should include some should be in there? That's my understanding is may have to go in there.
Right, so what N does is it allows council the ability to go in camera to have that exact discussion, to say whether you should be in camera to discuss those or whether those items could be disclosed outside. So the idea with N is if you have the discussion in open, then the cat's out of the bag, all your privileged information is already out there. So what N does is it allows you to go in, have that discussion, and you can choose to go back out.
But the items that you would be discussing on the slide.
The merits of why it's there, if it should be subject, it doesn't matter.
But I'm not going to support the motion on camera because none of the evidence that I see on there really have to do it. Some of them I don't even see the point in us doing, considering there wasn't a lot of information on how many people actually wanted it. I want to support the motion.
Thank you. Councilor Brennan.
It seems to me that it requires more than just knowing what the topic is. That there should be some, if you want to discuss it, you should discuss it on the merits. When you're going to talk about the merits of the issue being public or private, you need to have that discussion. And if you were able to just identify it by the title or the topic, you wouldn't even need, and you could just simply say, this topic is always open, this topic is always closed. That's why you would need to discuss, well, what are the merits of closed discussion or open discussion. So that's what that means to me.
You know, the first time, Councilor Kidd.
Just for me, it's always typically land, litigation, and labor that I've always looked at that. So we should first initially talk in camera about. And with any litigation, I hope there would be new information, because if it's not new, there's no reason to even have the opinion if it's not a new opinion. It's just a repeat we've already had. So from my perspective, I concern myself when we go in camera litigation and labor issue. All those covered in this, is every topic of land litigation and labor issue we're talking about?
The items that I listed here are the reasons to go in camera match the topics.
Thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
Yeah, I just don't see them mention those specific topics. And if we look at the merits, why we're going in camera, then it seems to me we have to discuss the items that we would be going in camera for to figure out whether they have merit, and we can't do that unless we go in camera according to section 9. So what's the point? So what this means to me is we should just be lobbying the province to scrap section 91 and just go with 92 and must go in camera meeting at least every week, which we do anyway.
So if I could, there appear to be items that are on the in-camera agenda that some members of council would like to have in an open meeting forum. So if we could, the other issue, before I get to that one, the other issue that I'd like to bring up is that we have a procedure at this council that we will disclose items that we've discussed in camera, in other words, the minutes thereof. If we hold the meeting in the open, then we will be disclosing items that we've not yet voted to disclose to the public, that we've already voted on. And we voted to go in camera to discuss. So that brings up some other issues. If there are items that members of council would like to discuss in the open, I would suggest under N that we go in camera and then determine which items we'd like to add to the agenda of our open meeting.
Your worship, the other important point is that everyone, by this discussion, I'm getting the assumption that once you go in camera, you never release it. And that's the wrong message for the public. In fact, if you go in camera and you think there's an issue that's not an in-camera issue or that you want to release, that just takes a motion to council to release it. It doesn't stay in camera forever, so it's up to council whether you would release it. So I think that that's something the public should understand, is that once it goes in camera, it doesn't stay locked in forever. It's totally up to council.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Actually, Councillor Kidd was before me.
Well, we typically never release legal opinions. Typically, one or two over times I've been involved in the last year, so yeah, we don't. I guess for me the concern is going in camera and the public watchful eye is a concern. And when we add things in camera or we don't, or the debate isn't talked about, even if there's not a motion or something, the debate isn't talked about or registered, or we have a report that doesn't meet getting the minutes in the whole report. So that's a concern to me. And we have, over the last couple of years, tried to rise and report on more of the issues and report them out. So I am happy that we're not out of that. But I think the concern is from what I hear from the public is that they're concerned with how often we go in. And that's the thing, without a disclosure of the agendas and minutes, you don't know if we go in camera for 1 or 10 items. Right? And there's one item discussed for 3 or 4 hours and doesn't hit the minutes because it's discussion. And I think that's the concern of the public. And we always hear about it, to speak in front of the public, do our business in front of the public is what we're supposed to do. And that's that transparency issue. And I think this was about transparency. In my opinion. And so if staff says to me it matches on this one, like I say, I'm happy to hear some of that. I understand a couple of the interesting issues we have on here can be related to labor and I guess a litigation issue from that perspective, but transparency, making sure the stuff we are talking about and the items we talk about in this agenda come out. I'm not always satisfied with that happens.
So, Your worship, I'd also point out, and councillors can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware, very rarely is there something that has been talked about in camera that isn't truly or you would have released it. So, although we may appear to frequently go in camera, that's because they're in-camera issues that are relevant in-camera discussions.
Councillor Fuller.
Well, that's subjective. You know, if you go by the community charter, most of them aren't really inclusion grounds. Otherwise, they would come under section 2 of the charter, and we wouldn't be discussing this right now. We would simply be moving in yes, we do release minutes of the in-camera meetings, but like any minutes, they're not very thorough. And this goes to the whole idea that was brought up in the presentation about, videotaping or even recording meetings, releasing the recordings. I look at the minutes sometimes, and, I'm voting to accept them, but they're so paltry that sometimes it says such and such discussion was had.
So on the point of order, are we gonna talk about minutes from previous meetings and whether they're thorough or not, or are we gonna talk about why the items on this agenda need to be in public?
Now, let's get the discussion back on track.
Yeah, well, it is on track. This is about going in camera. So on another point of order, I'll be talking. Diane, involved with that.
Councillor Brennan.
Councillor Fuller, the question.
Councillor
Councillor Fuller, the question that we have at hand today is whether we're going to go in camera. Particularly
we're
under
debating.
N. No, you're debating something that goes on in
I'm
theory in
debating
the past.
whether we go in camera period.
Can we get back to whether or not this meeting should go in camera?
Which we are talking about, because I sincerely do not believe it needs to. Some of the stuff should be on here.
Thank you. I think you've reiterated your point. Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Bestwick?
This is becoming an annual occurrence.
Perhaps you can elaborate.
Every July, you and I have a conversation from my destination here and back there. It's all good.
Thank you. See no further speakers or call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fuller, Kip, Yocum, Councillor Bestwick?
I'm in favor.
Favor, thank you. Motion orders. That's what we'll be considering tonight. So, Councillor Yocum?
Thank you, Your Worship. And in that same conversation, I'd like to share a few words in regards to that topic and make a motion.
There's a motion on the table. There's a motion on the floor.
Oh, okay. Your Worship, we're going to require, the way it would work is that the mayor may require it, and now that the mayor has read it, it is now a motion that doesn't need a second. The mayor requires it, it's now on the floor for debate and voting on again.
So it does require a second?
It does not, no.
Thank you. Councillor Yocum?
Thank you. But I'm not seconding that motion, but I'd like to speak on some comments, if I may, and also table a motion, if I may proceed.
There is already a motion on the floor. Would you care to make any amendments to that motion?
Yes, okay, if that's a way to speak, I'm definitely open to amendment if permitted. So the motions as was provided on July 13th and the mayor just read, so if you want to make an amendment, Councillor, then it would be to that exact wording. To the exact wording in the motion that's on the table? That's correct. So, Your Worship, did you want to read it, Pete? Want me to read it? That'd be helpful.
Go ahead, please.
Well, it's a wordy one. It was moved and seconded that council direct staff to undertake design and installation of an auxiliary spillway, the labyrinth box culvert, above the channel alternative, for the lower Colliery Dam and prepare a conceptual plan for the middle Colliery Dam that complies with dam safety regulations. And further, that council advise staff that council wishes to cease all legal efforts toward appeal of the comptroller's orders. So that's the motion that's currently on the floor.
As this is quite unusual, did you want to ask the clerk a question with respect to your motion?
Yes, please. Mr. Jackson, I'm not in favor of the motion that's on the table, but I'd like to make an amendment and have a few comments in the amendment to the motion that's on the table. So how would I proceed with that? Please. Well, what I would suggest then is if you'd have to make another motion with those amendments to this particular motion, and then it would be seconded, then debate, and then if that passed, it would form the main motion again. So what we've basically done is gone back in time to just before the vote on July 13th, and that's the motion that's sitting there now. So you can amend it through process by stating what you'd like, get a mover, you can move it and second it, and you go through that process. Is that easiest? Is that would be the best process? If it fits. If I don't know what the motion is.
It's topic, it's definitely topic pertaining.
Oh, certainly. The other way is, of course, is to consider this motion and then bring another one to the table. I don't know the nature of the motion that you have to underline, Councilor. Maybe the debate would help sort that out.
You want to let it go to debate?
Sure. Or I'm willing to proceed as well, whatever you guys suggest.
We do have speakers. Sure. So, Councillor Brennan is correct. We do have a delegates list now, do we?
Good, Your Worship, there are three. First is Terry D. Wager, followed by Jeff Solomon, and then finally Mr. David Katz. So Terry D. Wager, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. Wager.
Your Worship, point of privilege. Is it possible to put the motion up on the board? The motion was said, we don't have a copy of it, so it's not in the minutes. The old staff form, but I don't have a copy of it.
See what we can do. Mr. Wager, you have 10 minutes.
Thanks. I will be I just wanted to make sure that we get a chance to speak. But since I'm here, I object to this motion strongly because of the basic lack of information that we still have about the construction of the dam. You know, I know we're talking about a spillway or a swale or whatever, but the fact of the matter is that the issue is what we're afraid might happen if the spillway were to be overloaded by water, and if the water was to wash over the dam and cause the dam to collapse. But we don't have a lot of the basic information that we need about the dam to even understand what would happen to it if it was overflowed with water. For one thing, we don't even know what the concrete part of the dam looks like. We don't know if it's wedge-shaped or if it's straight like a wall. We don't know if it would stand on its own and hold that water without the dirt. We don't know what the dirt is even made of, really. We don't know how long it would take for it to wash away. We don't really know for sure how much water it would take for it to wash away. These are critical things that have not been established. Of course, I'm not an engineer, but these are things that can be quite clear from reading the reports. They're full of references to inadequate amounts of time or resources needed to complete their studies. For instance, the amount of water that they say might flow down over the dam is determined by essentially estimates derived from meteorological reports from the surrounding area, not necessarily from the watershed that the Chase River originates in. There's a lot of reasons that we should have more time to look at this. And there's very few reasons to race ahead other than Victoria threatening us. You know, this swale, it has a lot of uncertainties about it as well. There's been no detailed construction plans or real concrete cost estimates about it. The upper level, as far as I can remember, the last you guys said is like 4.8 or something like that $1 million. But in the lack of actual construction plans or diagrams or anything like that, there's no way to be clear. And there's been no preparation or thought at all about the impact of Hayward Creek, as has been pointed out by Jake Kipp and others. All this water, if it ever does show up, is going to cascade into Hayward Creek. And I know from talking to you guys before, and Mr. Siebert did confirm, when I was asking about the what would happen if the water overflowed and went down into, over the dam, and we were talking about the so-called GSI proposal for armoring the dam. And it was pointed out that, yes, the water, if it came down there, it would hit all those trees and stuff down there and create an avalanche, basically, of water and trees that go ripping downstream. So those streams would have to, or those trees and all that area would have to be cleaned up. Those trees would have to be removed and a flood channel created in case the Titanic flood came along. And it occurs to me that logically, that this would have to be taken into consideration in Hayward Creek. I don't know if you guys have been down to Hayward Creek, but I go down there quite often. And I see lots of trees, lots of moss, I see animals down there. And I think, well, I'd rather see all that there than a concrete channel that's all nice and safe for a flood that might possibly come sometime in the distant dark future. Or probably Well, their order is based on some pretty suspect information. You know, unfortunately, it was provided by us, well, meaning you guys, but it's still suspect information. And I think that you should challenge that information. I think that you should tell Victoria to take a hike and tell them to charge us. Let's go to court and let a judge look at the situation and blow it up. And we'll let the details fly, and we'll let the stones be turned, and we'll let everything be laid on the table. And we'll find out if there's any evidence that the dams are dangerous. A lot of people say they are not. And I know that some of you agree with it. And I plead with you, and I beg you, stand up. Throw a step. Tell them to go to hell. Thank you.
Any questions from the delegation? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Next delegation?
Closed. It's closed.
Mr. Jeffs.
Thank you. I just want to point out that our MLA, Doug Rutley, has just came in late, and I'm just proposing, that it sounds like he may wish to speak to the issue, that be acceptable to the council. I just want to bring that up. I'm hoping that is okay.
Councilor.
Yeah, I would move that we allow Doug Red or MLA to speak.
Good. Seconded by Councilor Gill.
They are good.
Yes. Good. Okay, you have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Gill. You'll have to have Mr. Rutley to the expenses. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. First, I just want to address the motion here. It talked about the conceptual plan for the middle Colliery Dam. I just want to point out that we went back and forth about the middle dam many times during the course of our meetings at the technical committee. Initially, everything was going to be devoted in terms of the efforts to the lower spillway, which would accommodate any potential issue with respect to the middle dam. Golder's engineers had proposed doing absolutely nothing at the middle dam. Inevitably, DSS came back and said that they did require something at the middle dam, but it certainly, they do not see this as being an issue that required any immediate attention. And I see this as being quite ironic, because in the proposal that was made by the council, they specifically said that they would propose remediation at the middle dam initially, right now, to accommodate any concerns with respect to its potential failure. And that was dismissed automatically. And so, you can't have it both ways. You either say it has some importance or you don't. So I think that should be addressed in that motion. Okay, so I want to say, let's be sure about the ramifications of what is going on here with respect to this issue. There's a whole whack of stuff that's going to affect this city council in our city and throughout the province dramatically. And these are very, very important issues. First of all, right here, it's going to blow a big hole in our budget. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. It's going to become spending priority number one, I would assume, for the city in the very, very foreseeable future, if we go ahead with this. It is a major concern for many, many people that councillors have appeared to have been have had threats of personal liability, corporation liability, and for many people looking at this, it appears that it's to be a conflict for people in authority, for people in power, to have to vote on something when they're concerned about their own personal assets or personal liability being affected. How can you honestly state that you are looking after the betterment of making decisions for the betterment of the entire city when you're concerned about your own personal assets or liability? I think that that's a really, really important issue for this city council as you go forward with this issue and for many others. The process has managed to alienate the community, and it's overridden it's a major concern, but it's override the majority and will of the majority of our council. It's overridden that. And that's a concern for many in the community. Is saying we have a majority of council who wish to go in one direction and are not allowed to do that, to fulfill that wish and will. And that's a concern. It's not a sound basis for building a working administration for the next 3+ years. You know, it's been said, and we know this for a fact, our dams are built on bedrock, but this administration right now is floundering, and it doesn't seem to be well-based and well-founded. And that's a concern as we go on to other, many, many more important decisions that this council is going to make. And with this precedent that this process has occurred, it seems like the province can now dictate immediate expenditures of millions of dollars to any community based on concerns of what may happen in a hypothetical 34,000-year flood. And that's a concern for me, because we are talking, Nanaimo, little old Nanaimo, is setting an example for what may occur elsewhere in this province, for every little community. And that's an issue for me. There's no proof, as been stated many times whatsoever, about what could happen, if it even would impact our dams. We don't even have that, and yet we're being dictated to make these decisions based on that, and that's a problem. But the biggest disappointment for me is that this council has not stood united to demand time. That's what we asked for. We've asked for that repeatedly, to demand time for a reasonable solution with community input. A forced decision via threats does not allow for a good decision.
That's for sure.
And does not bode well for future decisions. It is impossible for me, as one of the representatives of the community, me or anyone else, to go and talk to other people in the community and say, you know what, this is the best that we can do. Given the circumstances, given the information we have, this is the best that we can do. I can't say that, and I don't think anyone here in this room or in this city council can say that. Even the engineers can't say that at this point, because we've been lacking information. We simply do not know what is required. And we haven't had the time and the will to find that information. I said to you last week, 1 year ago, we asked a number of questions. 1 year ago. And those questions weren't answered. We would have been much further along if they had been. And finally, and I've heard this many, many other times, finally, if we just finish with the Colliery Dams, we can move on to other important business. Really important business. And you are going to have important business tonight, and tomorrow, and for the next 3.5 years. But unless this issue is dealt with properly, unless the process is addressed, and is addressed properly, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to come together as a council and to deal with other important issues as they come along. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. David Cutts, your worship.
Mr. Cutts.
Mr. Mayor and councilors, thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak. This is the second time I've appeared before council since I moved here in 1980. I'm not planning on making a habit of it. I can pretty well guarantee you I won't be at this podium again for quite some time. And if I ever am, it'll be on a totally different subject. Some of you may have been around in 1967. Those of you who did well in history will remember it was Canada's birthday, though of course BC didn't join for well. It wasn't the first time I came here. I came here when Blake McGuffey was running a tax preparation company in '66, and I was working for his same company in Vancouver, and I came over and went to Palm Beach in the back of his camper over a gravel road. In '67, I was back in the somewhat more illustrious circumstances, having run away from home and ended up on the wrong side of Vancouver. 6 months earlier, I was back as the youngest serving representative on the Confederation Train in Canada. I think I was 18. Had a nice outfit. If any of you saw the train, you might remember the guys with their maroon outfits. the Malice Hotel, which wasn't the greatest day, especially after we'd been in the Empress in Victoria. I think, actually, what I remember about Nanaimo most fondly was the lovely ladies I met here. In any case, I sort of thought someday I'd come back here. And I did, make a long story short. I've been here since 1980. I work for nonprofits, run my own psychotherapy clinic, work for the school district, ran for school board with Ms. Brennan. She won, I lost. That was okay. And here we are. I'm rather looking forward to the 150th anniversary of the country. I have something I will present to council at that time. It is a museum artifact from the Confederation trade, which is quite valuable and very rare, if not the only one in Canada. However, before then, which I'm looking forward to, we have ourselves a situation. I'm not going to give anyone any advice about what to do with the dams. Obviously, I'm not for doing anything with them. I did meet with the mayor. We had a very nice 50-minute talk, and I sort of came to the conclusion that he was endorsing the GSI, but that seems to have gone sideways. Now, I have far more than 40 people on my hip. They are registered with me. They have been recruited, trained, and ready to go camping. Those of you who know my background know that it took my group 24 hours to save Mount Benson, 2 years of occupation to save the far end of Cathedral Grove, and of course some of us got arrested way long ago when everybody here was a lot younger over Clackwood. Those are the major campaigns. The only campaign I haven't won, with the help of a great number of people, I consider it a 50-50 on that water line through Colliery Dam Park. We managed to save a few trees, but apparently the water line was a waste of $1.4 million. So, isn't it, the synergy is coming together in this town. We have this thing with a hotel that's gone down in the dumpster again, but I can fix that, folks. I have a plan. Part of the deal with that ill-fated hotel, which, hey, who thought that was going to work out, was it was going to get a whole bunch of visitors to Nanaimo. I can do that. We had 20,000 people at the peace camp at Cloudwood. We had 859 people arrested, including yours truly. Don't believe me? There's books published with all our names. I'm not the only one in Nanaimo. I'm not the only one in my group. My group has three choices. One is to walk away in total disgust, extremely disappointed with the process, with council, and I've been disappointed about the provincial government forever, so that doesn't count. The second plan is to utilize the people who are registered with us and all others we can find in the Nanaimo area to participate in one of the three levels of activism, which I'm not going to waste your time sharing with you. It'll all be in the newspaper, and of course it will all end up in court, just like I did when council took me to court 2 summers ago, wasted a lot of taxpayers' money, and got denada out of it. But I did get to wear my suit. The third type of campaign, I'm meeting on Thursday with my statement committee, my core group. And I would say that that's likely what we're going to do. For almost 3 years, I've been involved in recruiting and training people. I'm not going to walk away, folks. And I say this with great respect. I may end up in jail again. Brandon Light's not a bad place to be. Been there, done that. Heck, I used to work with the Federal Penitentiary Service. Prisons aren't all that scary, except we really do need organic, vegetarian food in there. So what we are going to do, and this is basically where I'm going to leave you in peace until I see you elsewhere, we are going to put out a provincial and national call to invite activists to Nanaimo, just like they would be doing if they started building pipelines. I may be able to jerry-rig this so that it's a sort of a reunion of the Clackwood graybeards. Now, I was 45 when I was arrested, and I was one of the older ones, except for all the little ladies, and they're all from Gabriola. They're still around. We're going to invite these people to Nanaimo to live in our park. Just Colliery Dams Park. And maybe my backyard, I live 2 blocks from it. You know, I had other plans. I wanted to visit my 96-year-old mother-in-law in Holland. I wanted to go away on a motorcycle trip. I'm retired. I wanted to do retirement things. But as it is, I'll set that aside. I know quite a bit about each one of you. I would say almost all of you distinguished yourself in this town in major ways. I respect you. But I'm disappointed. I have my people who are counting on me to lead them. I'm going to do that. And just like the other campaigns, we go sideways, so be it. There will be no raised voices. Hopefully there will be no off-key singing. There will be no violence, I guarantee that. But there will be arrests. Lots of them. But folks, if there's any way we can get out of this, that's why I went to see you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping to sidetrack this somehow. I'm not looking forward to this. I'm turning 67 next month. I really would like to see this settled, and so we could all be friends again. Okay, sit off. Thank you.
Right on.
Next speaker, Mr. Doug Rugby. I'll leave Doug Rugby.
No comments, right? Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I really do appreciate it. And I know some may welcome this more than others. And, you know, for those who don't, I apologize. Earlier today, I was in a debate in the legislature about protecting communities from forest fire. And I think it's relevant to this. And I'll bring this back to that in a second. Unlike the previous speaker, and I understand his motives and I understand the place that people are in because they've had a wedge driven into their community unfairly. The people have been unfairly divided over an issue that should not have been handled this way. In fact, I hold the council of Nanaimo, the city of Nanaimo, with enormous respect and esteem that you have followed principle despite being bullied into a corner. And this, for any group, there are divisive or divergent points of view. And pressure like this will excite the lines of intersection of people's viewpoints. So to all the councillors, whether they have supported the effort to reject this pressure or not, you all have my respect for the way you've conducted yourselves, and I can't say that enough. Because I think that, you know, this community, I've been struck mostly by the fact that people have become so engaged with their community. And often it's negative things that bring people out. You know, they didn't invent refrigeration in the Arctic, and they didn't invent central heating in the tropics. People respond to the challenges they have in front of them, and they do their best with what they have. And I think that's what Nanaimo has done. For me, this is about democracy, about participation, and most of all about cynicism. We live in a world where people are largely, and maybe rightly so, cynical of the process, cynical of the people who occupy the seats that you do and the seat that I do. That people have through bitter experience and disappointment, lost faith. But I think what you've done, even though there's been some clash of viewpoints, has challenged that cynicism. That what you've done has been an example to everyone here that they do have voices. That voices don't always agree. That's why there's uneven numbers of you to break votes. But the democracy is messy, and this is the way it has to happen. What I object to, and I've always objected to in my life, is the bullying. Is the fact that when people unite and people express their views, that ought to be respected. And I have written a letter today to Minister Thompson, expressing my absolute outrage at the way this has been handled, and begging him to intervene, to provide the room for this council to heal and to assemble the information that's needed to make an adequate, proper decision. I absolutely understand why the council would entertain this motion and make this threat go away. And I hope that other third parties can intervene you've saved this community at least $20 million and the potential destruction of the park. That's what you've done already. You've already won in large measure. It's not a total victory, but you've already won a lot for this community, and you should be recognized for that. The provincial government, on the other hand, has thousands of students throughout the province in buildings that they know are seismically unsafe, and they have recently changed their plan from 10 years to remediate those buildings to 20 years, because they don't have enough money. So it's okay for them to put off risk, because it's just too much money to assess things, to take time. It's okay for them. I just debated fire prevention. Last year, $300 million was spent in BC for fire fighting. This year, $60 million was budgeted, and it's likely to top $400 million. You know how much was budgeted for fire prevention? $4 million. After the Kelowna fires, where 335 homes were burned, 45,000 people were displaced, the Philman report recommended that the province clear the interface from fuel that would provide danger to communities. You know how much they've done in 12 years? 10%. 10% of the work. And they devoted $4 million to that this year. So that speaks to me as hypocrisy, that the government can now come and bully Nanaimo into making this kind of rash decision. And I know people are impatient with the decision. But good decisions take time. We've already saved so much money for this community. They're bullying you into a place of making a decision without adequate information. I respect you for doing what you're doing, but I am absolutely horrified that this is happening at all. So we move on. And we hope for civility. And I've asked the minister to recognize that the greater danger to public safety is in fact the wedge that's been driven into this community, and the potential for unhappy consequences at that park should they come in and force work on this community. That's a far greater danger to the public safety and the public peace than anything that those dams present to this community. So I think that you have been guardians of public interest, that I agree with some of the councillors' positions, and I have disagreed with some, but I respect all of you for the fight and the way that you've addressed this issue. This is the outcome, and it is unsatisfactory, to say the very least, that you should be expected to make a decision without understanding the actual capacity of this building and that dam, without having a comprehensive hydrological study that can verify whether the threat is to the magnitude that it's described or not. I think that work should have been done. I think that the dam safety section should have, in fact, partnered with Nanaimo in order to get that work done. I've asked the minister to instruct the dam safety section to partner with Nanaimo to do a full study of the potential for flooding, given climate change, given the hydrological capacity of that watershed, and given the actual measurable capacity of the dam to handle flood. So far, the record of response and respect from the provincial government, I mean, it's no surprise to anyone that BCNDP and LA would be critical of the BC Liberal government. But regardless of who is the government, I think there ought to be at least a basic measure of respect paid to communities, paid to the Sinin First Nation, and I haven't seen that. I've spoken to the minister so many times about this. He's a farmer, he's a practical man, and I trust that he doesn't want to see the community torn apart over this, but they've failed, in my view. They've failed to provide the leadership and the support necessary. Well, they've stood on the sidelines and watched this council be torn apart and this community be torn apart by this issue. It's the worst example of seen in my 10 years as an MLA. And frankly, the performance of this council, and I include everyone on this council, has been the best example of a community struggling to cope with a problem that's almost untenable, it's almost unanswerable. And you have my undying respect for the work that you've done, despite disagreements and trips along the way. So I hope that this isn't the final measure of this problem, but in any case, I appreciate the opportunity to say these words and to offer you my support.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Yocum, did you have a question for the delegation?
No, just to proceed.
Councillor Brennan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Routley, I'm not sure how to address you, what your title as an MLA is. So, I'll just call you Mr. Routley. I just want to clarify for you that there was never a $20 million price tag attached to anything. I think the highest, the initial reports were 8 to 9 million. So there was a 30, well maybe 30 million, but it was never in a report. It was never, ever a serious estimate of work to be done on the dams. So I've identified several aspects of your presentation tonight that maybe aren't entirely factually correct. And I would invite you, I know the house is sitting, I understand it may be finishing up tomorrow or the next day. So I invite you at your very earliest convenience to sit down with myself and Mr. Seward, and we could go over some of the facts with regard to the dams, the costs, and the capacity of the spillway, so that you, I don't think you've sat down with our staff yet. So that would probably be a really good idea, and I take you that you are sincere when you say that you respect all of us and our points of view. So I think that would be really helpful to all of us if we were able to give you some of the facts as we know them. And finally, thank you very much for acknowledging that it's been tough for all of us. One more thing. I think the Nanaimo First Nation has signed off on this and actually recommended the labyrinth method. So it wouldn't be correct to say that they haven't been on board with this. They have, and they've been, from the very, very beginning, the Nanaimo had a meeting with us on a very regular basis about the dams and the challenges that we will face and the solutions that we have been providing. So that's my request to you, that you make time to come and sit down with myself and Mr. Seward and go over some of the aspects of the dam that we have known.
Thank you. It doesn't surprise me that views differ and interpretation of fact is different, but thank you.
Councillor Yocum?
Thank you. Just quickly, Mr. Routley, I would like to thank you, considering you were in the Torino Ledge today, working on behalf of this region, and I have no statement to say except thank you. And whether members offer it or not, I just value your support. As far as I know in this role, I've only been in this role since December, and you're the only provincial MLA that's championed and seen a fight for a cause, so I lift my hands up and acknowledge the work you've done on our behalf, so I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Bestwick. Is it a question for MLA Routley?
Directed as a comment toward Mr. Routley, yes.
Go ahead.
I would just like to thank and compliment MLA Routley for his participation and continued contributions to the greater good and betterment of our community and city. And I would also like to be one of those members of council that sits with MLA Routley if he chooses to establish the facts as some of us understand them. And there was a verbal report provided to a previous council that indicated that the amount may be up to $30 million for remediation. fondly recall that comment being made, and I would be happy to sit down with any people that wish to sit down with Emily Robley and have this conversation at his convenience. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yule.
Thank you. Not in regards to Mr. Relly, thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Robley.
Okay.
Can I call a point of order from the gallery? My understanding is that a point of order can be called from the gallery.
No. Sorry.
Okay, well, I just have to say that Mrs. Brennan is not correct when she said that.
Could you please sit down, sir? Could you please sit down, sir? Thank you. Please sit down.
They approved the labyrinth that was going to
You
go
are
down.
out of
the
order,
red
sir.
soil,
Please
not
sit
the
down.
building.
Please sit down. Thank you.
That's wrong.
Councillor Yule.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. I'm not sure with regards to the process. I want to make some statements and bring in a motion, but we're in a motion right now, I believe. So, Mr. Jackson, would it be easiest to vote on the motions at the table before I proceed, or should I make an amendment? I just want to know what's clearest. I think the first comment probably be easier, but what do you say?
Well, it depends on the nature of what you're recommending for an amendment, if it fits within this or is contrary to this.
I think it fits, but that's
If it fits, what I suggested, maybe bring that up and have the debate, and then if it sounds like council is moving in that direction, choose to move and second your amendments.
Sure, okay, I'll proceed. May I proceed then, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. It's a quick switch. In regards to the motion on the table, I'd like to share a few words in regards to Colliery Dams before I get to the motion, so please bear with me and thank you everyone for their patience. They are words of recognition and gratitude, but also words of deep frustration and disappointment. A number of years ago, it was brought to the attention of the city that the Colliery Dams would fail in a major earthquake. The plan proposed in response by staff was to remove the dams and renaturalize that part of the Chase River where the dams have been located for over a century. This proposal alarmed the community, who value the dams as an important part of our collective history, an important part of the community of Nanaimo, and an important recreational, even spiritual space has meant so much to so many. The citizens engage in various ways to clear their concern and assist the city in understanding the importance of the dams to them in the fabric of what makes Nanaimo what it is. A new proposal was then made by the City Council to remove the existing dams and rebuild them. At this point, the chief of the Nanaimo First Nation came to council to request time to engage with the city and the citizen groups on the dam to ensure that treaty rights to fisheries were being respected to make sure that an approach was taken that did not impact the fisheries. Council of the day agreed. It was in fact our worship, Mayor McKay, who was then a councillor, put forward the supporting motion to enable the timeout and process of engagement to halt the tendering process to remove the dams. This was definitely the right approach taken by council. However, the approach was almost undermined. In fact, the Nanaimo withdrew temporarily. When the facilitator dealing with the issue was threatened with legal liability for participating in the process, this governance impasse was overcome by the leadership of Mayor Rutamna, and the process continued and established a further process and technical committee to undertake further investigation into the dams and the level of risk, if any. They presented to the community. The technical committee challenged the assessment put forward that the dams would fail in a major earthquake and demanded that further work be done to better understand the risk and the need to remediate. Further engineering work made clear that the dams were strong and did not present a risk to the community from an earthquake. As any responsible government, City Council must act to ensure that public safety. As a dam owner and water rights holder, we must comply with regulations and orders from the provincial government and ensure that the Colliery Dams are maintained and do not present risk or danger to the public. As any responsible government, the City Council must ensure that it does not spend city tax dollars without good reason. Recently, after the claimed seismic risk was dismissed with further analysis, our attention has shifted to flooding, overtopping, and failure risk of the dams to public safety. The community has expressed concern about the need to verify the capacity of watershed for flooding and the need to ensure that we have certainty about the capacity to lower dam spillway. We have not yet had further work done to confirm the existing analysis. Remediation options are in the multiple millions of dollars to address this risk. Areas of the park will have to be destroyed. We have put forward multiple resolutions over the past several months for the purpose of continuing our due diligence on the dams. I am definitely frustrated, as many are, and concerned that as a government, we have not been able to collectively pursue a strong approach to ensure this in recent months. This experience has made it clear the challenges faced when this government is not working towards a common approach and is divided in a host of aspects on an issue. Rather than responding to the advocacy of the mayor and staff to work with us to continue due diligence, the Comptroller of Water Rights put forward orders in April directing this government to select a remediation option to address the flooding risk. Failing to comply with this order presents a threat of prosecution and major fines. It was a concern that the citizens raised at the outset in the work of certain councillors in the Nanaimo First Nation that saved the city from unnecessary spendings of tens of millions of dollars and in fact saved the dams. I am grateful for that diligence that saved tens of millions of dollars from being wasted. I remain concerned about the current status of the existing information and the failure to get the province to work with us. This has brought us to this horrible position where we are compelled to comply with an order that is premised on what we believe to be an incomplete and possibly inaccurate understanding of the Chase River and the dams. With that being said, though, I put forward the following resolution. Please bear with me, and I thank you for the patience. Whereas the city of Nanaimo has diligently pursued a resolution to issues first raised in 2010 regarding the Colliery Dams. This has included 1, engagement with the public to take into consideration the importance of the Colliery Dams Park. 2, engagement with the Nanaimo First Nation. 3, securing further technical analysis regarding the seismic concerns that made clear that dams are not a seismic risk. 4, pursuing further technical analysis regarding the hydrology of the Chase River watershed and spillway capacity of the lower dam with the goal of confirming and verifying engineering opinions provided to date. And whereas a select committee is being established pursuant to the resolution on July 13, 2015, in part to continue to pursue further technical analysis regarding the hydrology of the Chase River watershed and spillway capacity of the lower dam. And whereas the Comptroller of Water Rights issued an order requiring the City of Nanaimo to choose between 1 and 2 options, which further amended to include a conditional third option for overtopping. And whereas the city has not been successful in convincing the Comptroller of Water Rights to suspend or withdraw the order until further technical analysis can be undertaken to verify the need to spend significant public money. Therefore, pursuant to the Comptroller's order dated April 29, 2015, Council resolved to A, select the following lower dam remediation option, auxiliary spillway, labyrinth, box culvert, open channel alternative, and further resolve to direct staff to B, immediately notify the Comptroller of this selection and to undertake the preparation of a design report and conduct a construction plan for auxiliary spillway to provide it to the Comptroller as soon as practical. C, prepare a conceptual plan for the middle Colliery Dam for potential use once lower dam remediation complete. D, in collaboration with Council in the spirit of transparency to develop a terms of reference for tendering process for auxiliary spillway, labyrinth, box culvert, open channel alternative. E, continue to complete the terms of reference for a select committee that the terms of reference include the select committee in a consultative role throughout the entire process from the design through the installation of auxiliary spillway for the lower Colliery Dam in preparation of the conceptual plan of the middle Colliery Dam. F, in collaboration with Council to develop a terms of reference for an independent investigation and report on the Colliery Dam process with a focus on the problems, issues that have risen relating to engineering, governance, communication, engagement with the public and other governments. I'm going to repeat this F, it's so key to myself and many. In collaboration with Council to develop terms of reference for an independent investigation and report on the Colliery Dam process with a focus on the problems and issues that have risen relating to engineering, governance, communications, engagement with the public and other governments. G, in collaboration with Council to draft a letter to the provincial government outlining our concerns with respect to the process,
in the handling of this matter from government to government basis. Thank you.
Well,
Some type fast.
I think there's quite a bit there. So my question is, if I've got this correct, and I let you go on, because I thought you were looking at just a minor amendment to what was already on the floor. Let you go on because you're the strong silent type that doesn't normally say an awful lot. And I figure when you have something to say that you should be given the liberty to do so. I do have some concerns because we're asking for reconsideration of a motion, and I was hoping it was just a minor modification to that or an amendment to that. It seems quite different. Mr. Jackson?
Well, Council, thank you, Worship. What you could consider as Council is to table that motion that you have for reconsideration, which puts it on pause, and then you could consider this, and then return to the other one and maybe point.
Sure.
So it puts pause on the existing motion, and you can consider it separately.
Good motion to table the reconsideration. Councillor Hall. Okay.
Take the motion to table.
Okay. Second. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Fuller, I didn't see you there.
Yeah, but I guess there is the opportunity to table the existing motion. There's also the opportunity to vote on it and see what happens to it. But I would be willing to table it. Would this, that Councillor Yoakum has brought up, be considered a separate motion at this point?
So if you were to table that motion, then this one would be a motion into itself. It would be completely and utterly separate.
Okay, I deal with that.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion that you are suggesting for reconsideration is the motion which I made 1 week ago. In my opinion, although I respect what Councillor Yoakum is saying, if I understood most of it, I would not consider that an amendment to my motion. It seems to me to be quite a separate motion.
So, Your Worship, just point of clarity, we had a mover with Councillor Honda. We didn't catch a seconder, did we? Okay, thank you, Councillor.
For the table.
For the tabling motion, that's correct.
Just vote, correct?
No, the vote, that's correct.
Vote motion to table.
To table the original.
Table the original motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed by Councillor Thorpe, Pratt, and King, and Councillor Brennan.
Your Worship,
Councillor Brennan, Councillor Beswick?
I vote in favor of tabling.
Yep. So, motion carries. So now on to Councillor Yoakum's motion. Councillor Brennan.
Worship, I feel at a distinct disadvantage. This is a two-page, I don't know, it's not just a motion, there's a million whereases, and I'm just at a total, well, they're long, so I just feel at a total disadvantage. So if we are going to seriously discuss this motion, I would request that we recess for 15 minutes to allow us to read the motion and kind of understand what it says. It's very wide-ranging, and I think that I would need to have a written copy of it or forward it via email. So I'm moving to recess
Thank you.
for 15 minutes.
Thank you. Pardon me. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. We're getting photocopies of that right now, so we'll be able to hand it out to the members of council and other copies that we can make.
And on the motion to recess.
Well, there's a mover to recess. Currently, we don't have a secretary.
Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. Discussion of recess.
Your Worship, just if you're already recessed, a couple things I would suggest that councillors should think about.
We're trying to hear the city manager, folks. If you could please be quiet.
And I've just heard this motion for the first time, but a couple things to think about is that staff's recommendation for any of these projects was not to tender them, it was to sole source. We won't meet the deadlines unless we sole source. So that, in conjunction with any kind of community committee working in conjunction with us, would, I don't think it would fly with the comptroller. We couldn't give them the confidence that we would be able to complete it. Just something to work.
Councillor Floyd?
Well, I was just going to actually agree with Councillor Brennan that we do recess for 15 minutes so that we can go through this ourselves and be able to speak to it.
Councillor?
I definitely support council getting this copy. It isn't very, in my view, it didn't seem too complex. It's about dealing with an issue. Haven't we wanted to deal with this issue for eons? And if we can't sole source it, then well, I hope this motion, if it does pass, it's actually followed through, because as we've gone too far, we may not follow through. And worked on this to try to put a resolution to this, as help as best I can. That's best foot in this, best one forward, and let's put a resolve to this. So to be told and think of every reason we're why this is problematic is ludicrous and unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Through the chair to Councillor Yocum, if I heard staff correctly, all they were saying is that we would need to change that wording around tendering to sole sourcing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to meet the deadline. I think that was the only part that was a problem. And it seems like we want to make a motion that is going to work for staff as well in terms of putting the plan together and so on. So maybe. Yeah, so let's do the recess.
Councillor Fuller on the motion to recess.
Yeah, the recessing doesn't mean we're not going to consider the motion. It means we're going to give people time to read the motion so they can speak to it effectively. Then we will discuss the motion. The motion is still on the table. Yeah.
Thank you. Call the question. All those in favor?
She's there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call our meeting to order. Are you ready, Terry? Are you ready in the booth? Can you give me the high sign to go? Go. Thank you very much. We'll resume the meeting now. Councillor Yocum and our legal counsel will be a little bit. So we're going to move on to the next item. There's not been a seconder for the motions on the floor. So we're going to move on to...
There's Jennifer June.
So, Councillor Yocum.
Proceed, Your Worship.
Please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Council. You'll have it in front of you now. I apologize for not having your hands earlier, but nonetheless, here we are. I'll go through this. Bear with me, so here we go. Whereas the City of Nanaimo has been diligently pursuing a resolution to issues first raised in 2010 regarding the Colliery Dams. This has included 1. Engagement with the public to take into consideration the importance of the Colliery Dams Park. 2. Engagement with the Nanaimo First Nation. 3. Securing further technical analysis regarding seismic concerns that made clear the dams are not a seismic risk. 4. Pursuing further technical analysis regarding the hydrology of the Chase River watershed and the spillway capacity of the lower dam with the, that's not my typo, the goal of confirming and verifying the engineering opinions provided to date. And whereas a select committee is being established pursuant to a resolution on July 13, 2015, in part, to continue to pursue further technical analysis regarding the hydrology of the Chase River watershed and the spillway capacity of the lower dam. And whereas the Comptroller of Water Rights issued an order requiring the City of Nanaimo to choose between one of two options, which was further amended to include a conditional third option for overtopping. And whereas the City has not been successful in convincing the Comptroller of Water Rights to suspend or withdraw the order until further technical analysis can be undertaken to verify the need to spend significant public money. Therefore, pursuant to the Comptroller's order dated April 29, 2015, Council resolves to A. Select the following lower dam remediation option: auxiliary spillway, labyrinth box culvert, open channel alternative. And further resolve to direct staff to B. Immediately notify the Comptroller of this selection and undertake the preparation of a design report and construction for auxiliary spillway to be provided to the Comptroller on or before July 24th. C. Prepare a conceptual plan for the middle Colliery Dam for potential use once lower remediation is complete. D. In collaboration with Council, in the spirit of transparency, develop terms of reference for a tendering process for the auxiliary spillway construction, labyrinth box culvert, open channel alternative to be awarded no later than September 1st, 2015. E. Re-establish the technical committee as a select committee, including 2 serving councillors, and that the terms of reference include the select committee in a consultative role throughout the installation of the auxiliary spillway, labyrinth box culvert, open channel alternative for the lower Colliery Dam, and the preparation of conceptual plan for the middle Colliery Dam. F. In collaboration with Council to develop a terms of reference for an independent investigation and report on the Colliery Dam process with a focus on problems and issues that have arisen related to engineering, governance, communications, and engagement with the public and other governments. G. In collaboration with Council to draft a letter to the provincial government outlining our concerns with respect to the process and handling of this matter from a government-to-government basis. H. Abandon all legal procedures before the Environmental Appeal Board. There you go.
Thank you. There's nothing on the backside.
No, no.
Thank you. You're welcome. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. Call the question.